Source Nation. Join us now for The Pendulum with Dr. Samori Swygert, a platform that encourages the 4Ds of philosophy: discussion, discourse, dialogue, and debate. Prepare to travel from the past, present, and have discussions of future implications and projections with a correlation to African Americans. These topics are intended to grab your attention, cause contemplation, and encourage some form of action. From the world to the White House to the hood and everything good, the pendulum is swinging your way. Source Nation, here is your host, Dr. Samori Swygert.
Welcome, welcome. Hello, Source Nation. How's everybody doing today? Once again, Dr. Samori Swygert, a.k.a. Doc Swag, is in the building. And we have a very, very special show for you today. We're really going to put our foot in it. We're going to put our foot in the mix. But anyway, once again, I'm wishing you tremendous blessings in health, family, love, career success, spiritual progress, and the accomplishment of your dreams. Now, Source Nation, let's get really intellectually intimate. So before we do that, you know the routine. Get your coffee, get your wine, get your water. If you want to turn your water into wine, that's just fine. And make sure you pass me my what? My shoehorn, so I can put my foot all up in the mix of the day. Make sure you share the link with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms. I'm your host, Dr. Samori Swygert, a.k.a. Doc Swag, and I want to welcome you to my show, The Pendulum. Now, some like, why do you call your show The Pendulum? Well, a pendulum is an apparatus that people associate with a clock. It helps gauge time and space. It traverses through time in a constant backward and forward motion. Some would say retrograde to anterograde. And this is what we do throughout the show as I engage topics, because we have to learn to connect the dots of the past, the present, and the future. The show is designed to encourage what I call the 4Ds: debate, dialogue, discussion, and discourse. Gather your friends and family as we prepare to travel from the past, the present, and have discussions of future implications and projections with a correlation to African Americans. From the world to the White House to the hood and everything good, the pendulum is swinging your way. Now, Source Nation, very, very, very excited for today's show. Have a very powerful guest, very powerful sister, a much-needed voice out here in the universe, beating her drum and trying to tune everybody. She's a tuning fork to the souls and spirit of our people. And so who we have is a mentor, activist, a teacher, and a mother that many of you know. If you don't know, you will know by the name of Miss ZaZa Ali. This sister has made it a commitment to sacrifice her creativity, heart, energy, attention, time, and research to all things pertinent and germane to our people. ZaZa Ali is a phenomenal woman that can converse with you on a myriad of topics that range from balancing your chakras, channeling your energy, to our food, governmental operations, crucial issues that impact us, from the educational system, mass incarceration, parenting, or just teaching us how to connect the dots and decode the cryptic messages within dystopian Hollywood films. ZaZa Ali is the author of 3 publications that are considered mandatory reading in these contemporary times of instability. ZaZa Ali stands out as a bold and refreshing voice among women in this 21st century, a queen and warrior that challenges both women and men to do true introspection and clean up ourselves for the preservation of our black race and the posterity within our children. So, Source Nation, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to speak with author ZaZa Ali. Before we do that, I have to thank our sponsors because they make all of this possible. So let's thank Zuliana Health, Wellness, and Fitness, Paper to Films Productions, Revolution Mills, Renovations, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Blend to Blend Juice Bar Boutique, Urban Grandstand Digital, and New Covenant and Praise Worship Center. Now, this is live show, so if you want to call in during the show, if you have questions, comments, the number is area code 619-924-0933. Once again, area code 619-924-0933. Okay, we'll be back. We'll take a quick break. Peace.
Source Nation, stay tuned. You're listening live to The Pendulum with Dr. Samori Swygert.
Radio Network is just one of the many platforms that is used to fulfill dreams of our listeners and create a purpose that will impact the lives of our communities, cities, and the world. It is often said that great things will happen when a group of driven people work together to accomplish one goal. We're giving people the opportunity to have a voice, translate words that haven't been heard, and paint pictures that no one has seen. Source Radio Network is fueling your life's purpose. How can you listen? www.blogtalkradio.com/Source Radio.
Hey you, do you know your history? Do you know your culture? We have a beautiful history full of triumph, determination, perseverance, love, hope, faith, family, and community. And as your great griot, I want to share that history with you. A griot? It's pronounced griot, or in English, a griot. It's a West African term for the person who keeps up with the genealogy, the history, the culture, shares the stories of the people, and so much more. We're like a walking library, full of knowledge and ready to share. I'm going to take you into the history and the culture of your people from all over the world. A griot's purpose is to serve the people. That's right. As the great griot, I am here to serve you. Because the more you know, the more you grow. Wait, that's not my quote. Oh well, it's the truth.
The Great Griot, a brand new Black History web series. Check us out online at www.thegreatgriot.com or subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/thegreatgriot.
Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to The Pendulum with Dr. Samori Swygert.
All right, Source Nation, welcome back to The Pendulum. I'm your host, Dr. Samori Swygert, and you're tuned in. We're going to have a very great show today for you. And before I do, it's imperative that I bring this up because we've seen some tremendous losses, and so when we talk about people carrying the torch of our predecessors, our ancestors, our elders, we have to mention them. We have to invoke their spirit, So we think of, and when I say ancestors and predecessors, so those that have passed and those that are still here, but they're not capable to necessarily carry the fight as when they were carrying the fight. So we invoke the name of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. We invoke the name of Ida B. Wells, Harriet Tubman, Queen Nzinga, Sojourner Truth, right? We think of Fannie Lou Hamer, Mary McLeod Bethune, Shirley Chisholm. We think of Coretta Scott King, Betty Shabazz. Then there are those that are still here with us, that are serving and still continuing to fight. We think of the wife of Medgar Evers, Millie Evers, right? We think of Ruby Sales. We think of Julia Hare. I think of Barbara Sizemore. She passed away, but she was a queen unto herself. So when we talk about Black women in history that continuously hold down the fort, hold down the race, they continue to nurture and uplift, we have to invoke that. And when we talk about people carrying the torch on to the next generation, this is why it's important for today's show. So I told you that we're going to have a discussion with ZaZa Ali, and ZaZa Ali is here. Queen ZaZa Ali, how are you doing today?
I am doing absolutely great, brother. Thank you so much for having me and for calling on those sisters and those names, just, kind of honing in on all of them, those specific names. It gave me a rush of energy. So I definitely appreciate that, always standing on those shoulders.
That's right. That's right. You stand tall. You stand tall. So, ZaZa, just briefly, tell the listeners, because, there's some that are familiar with you, and then there's probably some that are probably getting turned on to you for the first time. So just briefly, if you will, just tell them a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and, what you're about.
Okay. Well, I am ZaZa Ali. I'm originally from Oakland, California. I am in Atlanta, Georgia now, and I'm a mother. I am a self-published author, a humanitarian, a lover of Black people, researcher, truth seeker, and just a servant, of the Creator.
Right.
I think that
All
was
right.
I was going to add something else after that, but then after once I said it, that was pretty much, that was good enough. That was sufficient.
That'll suffice for now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Not a problem at all. I know you wear a lot of hats. One thing that I encourage everybody to pay attention to, one thing she said was a researcher, and it's true. This queen really does her research. She does her homework the same way that you see DJs go to the record store and dig through crates, through vinyl. That's how she is with all this material and information. And she excavates that pertinent information, and she makes sure that she disseminates it to people so that we can stay informed and make wise decisions about our affairs. So we're grateful to have her here. Now, ZaZa, one thing that I like to do before and towards the end of my show is making sure that our guests have an opportunity to put their contact info, and if they have any type of services or products or goods that they would like to promote, to get that out of the way so that people can write that down and have that ready so they can contact you after the show's over. Tell us, how can people reach you, your social media handles, and some other things that they can contact you on?
Absolutely. Well, you can reach me on all of my social media sites through my website. It's ZaZaAli.com, and it'll connect you to my YouTube page, my Facebook, my Twitter. I am currently doing one-on-one counseling sessions with mostly sisters, but it's something that I just started a couple of months ago, and it's going really well. So if anyone's interested in that, you can contact me through my website. I'm also getting ready to announce my second sisterhood retreat or women's retreat of 2018. That'll be in Sedona, Arizona in November. So if you want information on that, email me at info@ZaZaAli.com, or like I said, you can get everything. You can contact me through the website, and you can get my social media pages there as well.
All right. You heard it from the queen. Okay, so slowly but sure. Now, ZaZa, you are the author of 3 publications, correct?
2, soon to be 3. 3 in a couple of weeks here. Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's start unpacking. Tell us about the first and the second Black Matters, the different volumes. What are those about?
So volume 1 is called The Scientific Intervention in Our Affairs, and that book is basically an introduction for some and a follow-up for others when it comes to the scientific war that has been waged on melanated people around the world. So it deals with crack cocaine, genetically modified food, vaccinations, geoengineering, organ trafficking, and just a lot of things that have been happening continuously for more than 100 years, and how America and these Western civilizations have waged war on melanated people through experimentation, through direct spraying, through vaccination. And it's important for us as a people to understand, and this is why I wrote the book specifically for us, that, melanin serves as a different type of genetic makeup. So it is affected by and responds differently to, vaccinations and different medicinal, recommendations that may not necessarily affect Europeans or other people in the same way. So I wanted to give that to the people to just kind of start asking broader questions and different questions about what's happening in the medical industry and in the scientific fields. Plagues of Dysfunction, which is volume 2, is more so a mirror for us, for our community, us coming from urban settings, ghettos, and, just Black culture in America. I think there's a lot of things that we need to talk about, aside from racism, white supremacy, of course, that some things that we need to clean up in our own backyard. So Plagues of Dysfunction, it deals directly with Black women, and then it touches on Black men, and then it touches on just kind of broadening the scope of some of the things, the dysfunctional behavior in our communities and how we need to address these things.
All right. And the third book, did you kind of want to spill the beans?
Sure.
Or
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
No, really, I'm really excited about this book. Yeah, no problem. The Science of Sex will be my third book publication, and I'm really excited about it. I kind of went through and even in Plagues of Dysfunction, I talked about and touched on, even actually in both books, the first book talking about Planned Parenthood and this, direct agenda to, depopulate Black community and stop us from producing life. That abortion, sexual transmitted diseases, having, sexual relationships in our community with no real spiritual and emotional attachment and even mental attachment. And we can see, what this has produced as far as, all of the households that are being headed by only single women and, fatherless children. And there just are a lot of things that are happening, not only in our community, but in society in general, because we don't respect the act of sex, because we don't respect our anatomy. We don't respect the production of life. We don't respect the deeper understanding and condition of what it means to be a woman and what it means to give birth. So I wanted to put together a sort of scientific and then spiritual, perspective on sex to try to kind of up the ante on the conversation. And, abstinence is a word that's like a curse word, in the Black community. Like you say that, people, start wanting to fight and talking about being sexually disciplined and being responsible. It's like, don't tell me what to do with my business. Oh, okay, but, we need to talk about this. So that's what the Science of Sex will be, and I'm really excited about it.
That's awesome, and it's very important. I say it's truly important because when we talk about the science of sex, when we talk about sex in general, what we're really, really talking about is life and death on a deeper level, because of the fact that basically, if successful with the goal, with the person you're with, engaging in intercourse, sex, ultimately, aside from the enjoyment, is population, bringing a new spirit, a new life unto this earth. If not done correctly, if tampered with through the foods, the different drugs that can affect a woman's fertility or fecundity, or the sterility of a male, to the point where cannot have children, or we give birth to children that will not be functional in society, let's say that. It's a real thing. So, it's literally life and death. We play games with it. We can twerk all day, we can shake our ass, we can do porn all day, we can do all of that. But it's really a matter of life and death that we really need to take into consideration. So I think that's going to be a dope book once it's released.
Well, and I agree 100% with everything you said. And I'll add to that. It's definitely to reproduce ourselves, and then there is also higher levels of consciousness that we can achieve and aspire to through sex. And when I say through sex, I'm not just talking about with a partner. I'm talking about tantra. I'm talking about learning how to control or breathe into your organs, learning how to control the microcosmic orbit in your system, learning about the chakras, learning about the root chakra and the connection of the sexual energy with the crown chakra and the mental capacities in the pineal gland. It's funny, you talked about the dysfunctional element as far as how we see sex and then the food and all of those things. how can we have this very promiscuous society, particularly of young women, right? But then when you talk about breastfeeding, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, people turn their nose up at that. You know what I'm saying? You want,
right.
you know, we're talking about jump offs, and you know what I'm saying? We talk about jump offs and all of this, you know, this fast, very promiscuous culture, but a lot of our women don't even understand the fallopian tubes and how the process of the semen entering into the womb and how, you know, all of these different pH levels and all of the different things that are happening in that root chakra area in order to not only produce life, but to give you life, you know, the chemicals and whatnot that we produce. So just even in mentioning the science, right, just the word, the science, and then of sex, obviously sex is going to automatically, you know, antennas are going to go up. But looking at the word science, understanding the idea of observation, of making a hypothesis, of asking questions, of, you know, thinking deeper than just when you lay down with someone and have sexual intercourse. It's a vast subject. You know, there's been volumes and volumes of works written for hundreds of years, and we haven't even tapped the subject. But in our community in particular, because of the way that the music is so low frequency and constantly hitting us in our lower nature at the root chakra, turning that sexual energy on. The music, the you know, the Instagram is like a lightweight porn hub now. You know, all of these different social media mediums and the news and everything constantly hitting us there. So if we can have up the ante on the conversation, we can help young people to understand what's really happening, the psychological war that's being waged on them.
You know, the other thing, I would even, I'm not going to say I'm going to take it to another level. I'm just going to shift a little to another side of what we're talking about. I would even say the programming of our consciousness, when we talk about the sanctity of the womb, you know, you have women that would love to have kids that are barren, that cannot have kids, right?
Right.
But then you think about the sanctity of the womb from which life comes. But then you think of how we've been programmed through today's music. And how do we talk? What's the lexicon? What do we say? Or pop that pussy open. Or I'm going to break it open. I'm going to kill that. And we're talking about the womb here. This is from where life comes. But just in how we use our language, we're speaking death into the womb. So it's on a subconscious level, too, that we also got to think, you know, so that's right.
Absolutely. And you know, I had even, you know, wrote some notes down the other day thinking about the music and, you know, listening to the radio and then, you know, listening to some of the artists, trying to stay abreast with pop culture today. And just thinking about how, you know, when I was coming up, we had the OJs, we had the Temptations, we had real love songs where a man wasn't talking about effing you, right? You know what I mean? He's not talking about what he's doing with that PUSS. You know what I mean? He's talking about his feelings. He's talking about, you know, nurturing and compassionate and intimate kind of love songs. And now everything is just like hit it and quit it. Like, you know, it's a very unfortunate situation, but this is why it's important to have the conversation.
Exactly. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit, ZaZa. I want to ask you a question because I like So one thing I do for those that are listening, one thing I do is whenever I have a guest on, I always just get in contact with them prior to the show, just to chop it up and kind of get a feel of, you know, where we are and, you know, just how the conversation will go. So ZaZa and I, we talked about a lot of different things. And one thing, when I got off the phone, I was thinking about something. And I remember I think you had did one of your videos. Also, if y'all haven't gone to YouTube and went to her channel, she has a lot of great videos. So, but the question is the purge real in your perspective? Because, you know, that movie, it's like that thrill kill dystopian box office blockbuster that everybody likes. People like it for entertainment, but I see more behind the onion layers. And, you know, there's a myriad. It's not just shooting somebody or hacking them up with a chainsaw. as like the movie goes, but I think it's more to The Purge. What's your take on that, ZaZa?
Well, again, going back to psychological programming, the movie in itself is a psychological program, and it mirrors, the video games that these young people are playing now. It videos the games that they have access on through their phones and applications. And then, if you look at a city like Chicago or Oakland or somewhere in New York where there's heavy levels of violence and heavy levels of crime, I mean, we have brothers that get killed because somebody stepped on their tennis shoe or because they stepped on someone else's tennis shoe. If we really just, I remember I was reading an article that said that if we put all of the bodies that have been killed in Chicago, I want to say it was like 30, over the course of 30 years, there would be enough, it would be like, it would fill up a football stadium with like 400,000 bodies, right? So we live in a culture that is constantly reinforcing this violent element and then turning around and psychologically playing on you and blaming you for it, right? We put drugs and guns in your community and Planned Parenthood in your community and liquor stores in your community and make it harder for any, wholeness and wellness and, organizations that want to come just to help the community. We make it difficult for them, but then we give the green light to, people coming in the community and pushing death. All of these things, coming from you grow up in a community and then you, throughout your lifetime, see this constant death, constant war. The purge is all around us. And even from a scientific perspective, you think about this idea that these people were taking aborted fetuses, right? Taking these fetuses and turning around and selling them again on the black market. You got a young brother that gets found in California in the desert with all of his organs missing. You have brothers, this is happening all across the country. So somebody's killing someone for organs. Do we actually live among those kind of people that are killing people and that have access to doctors and nurses and practitioners that can, tediously remove that stuff and then go out and sell it? I mean, this is the world that we live in. So when everybody was all up in arms about the Libyan slave trade, and rightfully so, even though, there's a lot happening in Africa, all across Africa, that deserves our attention, but this is happening in America every day. Girls of all races, boys of all races get snatched off the street every single day in this country and are never to be found again. So the purge from a psychological perspective, as far as them, okay, we give you one day where everybody can go out and kill themselves. They put it in the movies to make it seem so absurd, right? But this happens in this country every single day, and there are laws and stipulations that keep the wheel turning, so to speak, to keep mass chaos.
I agree with you. One of those laws would be like stand your ground. Right. People abusing that. Like I'm all about self-defense, but you also need to understand there's a double-edged sword to any law. And so where it may be self-defense, it can also be misused and misconstrued for other nefarious means. When we say the purge, in addition to everything that you said, when we say the purge, we're simply talking about the eradication of individuals from a specific environment. So that goes into mass incarceration. What do you think these police are out here doing in these streets and in the justice system? They've taken these men and women up off these streets, out of these households, putting them inside their prisons to be gone for years, decades, life. When we talk about eradication and the purge, that's what these police officers are out here doing. They are purging.
Well, think about this, brother. Yes, and think about this. I remember Dick Gregory said something that always stuck with me. He talked about how the police have those weapons that are filled with all of that lead always on their body. And he was talking about making the connection between lead and the neurological impact that it has as far as making people violent. So in the book, I also talk about the fact that cities like Chicago have a very high level of lead in the pipe system, which means there's lead in the water, which means that it is making them prone to violence. But you remember Hurricane Katrina. We had
Yes.
Regular brothers and sisters that were seeking safety, walking across the bridge, and these people opened fire on them. We had Cynthia McKinney said, and it was kept real quiet, but Cynthia McKinney said that thousands of prisoners came up missing in New Orleans after the flood, that there were thousands of prisoners that could not be accounted for. And she alluded to, she didn't say it directly, and it's still online, she alluded to the fact that she thought that there was a mass grave somewhere because of the, so, and Cynthia McKinney ain't no, that's a powerful sister.
Oh,
she don't just speak out of turn. You know what I mean? So the fact that she even said it sent me, but remember when Obama went into office, gun sales skyrocketed in America.
That's right. They called Obama.
It's like, so wait a minute. All you need to do is see a black man in a position of power, and now you ready for all-out war? What did our people really step back and take a look at that?
Right.
Because it means that it's not just his physical presence, but it's the psychological fact that he's there, that he has some semblance of control in their life, that he's making decisions about their lives. So go ahead. I know you were about to jump in there.
No. With that, I'm going to wind up a pitch to you, just piggybacking off what you said, to one of your favorite authors. That goes back to what Dr. Frances Cress Welsing would say. It's that fear of a black man in control, that fear of that gun, and the gun being representative of black male genitalia. So
right, the equalizer. The gun is the equalizer.
That's right.
Her whole premise, the whole premise of her work was based on fear of white genetic annihilation, meaning that genetically, we as a people can completely decimate the European race, and they're aware of it, particularly the powers that be. So they institute all these different policies and all this madness around the world. I mean, melanated people outnumber Europeans 13-1 around the world. So how is it possible that such a small minority around the world can have so much economic, sociological, psychological, every level of control and institution around the world, Europeans control? So it has to be beyond just science. It's always going to be psychological. It's always going to be through the media. We have to start recognizing the war and the tools that they use to play tricks with our minds.
Facts. You brought up Hurricane Katrina, and what I will also say, still following along that line of the purge question, I also believe that through HAARP and weather manipulation, that is another form of purging. We know that the government had Operation Popeye, which was revealed in 1967 State Department memo, where it said that the government admitted that they used weather manipulation to flood the Koreans and in Vietnam. Anybody, you should just really know that HAARP is real, and weather modification and weather manipulation is real. And the fact that you saw what happened in Hurricane Katrina, you saw what happened with Hurricane Harvey, all these different things, that the fact that here in D.C. it was 10 degrees a week and a half ago. Then it was 63 degrees just on Monday in January. This stuff, you have natural weather and you have man-made weather. And all this stuff that they're doing, they're also purging people from that, because when you look at these floods and hurricanes and all this type of stuff, people losing their lives by the scores. So they're taking people out of their environment. But go ahead.
Well, absolutely. And, again, I talked about this in my first book. No one turned me on to chemtrails. I was literally minding my business in my own life in Oakland and started observing the sky and started recognizing these long, full, what look like contrails, which is the normal, what do you call it?
Jet exhaust, like the exhaust.
Jet exhaust, thank you, that come from planes. I would see them coming out, but they would never disappear. And so, I'm in California. I grew up in, sunny, always, mild weather. And I started recognizing that there were days where the sky would just be completely white. So they would spray, it would billow out into long lines that looked like clouds, and then the whole entire bay would be really, really hazy. People wouldn't really pay attention because the Bay Area is generally hazy in the morning time. So I'm watching this. I started doing some research online, find a Yahoo group that has some organizers and some scientists that have been researching this. Come to find out there's a full-fledged agenda in order to be able to manipulate and modify the weather. Now, I can hear, I can hear people screaming inside their heads right now. They can't make weather. God makes weather. This is all in the prophecy. The Bible said that this was going to happen. There would be, all of that. Well, okay. But the thing about it is, see, we have to stop putting our heads in the sand and stop ignoring things that are right in front of our face. They are either creating or manipulating or affecting our weather, or all three. But just like you said, the situation in D.C., in Atlanta, it snowed for 2 days, and it was 14 degrees outside. And 3 days later, it was like 65 degrees outside. Now, there are scientists and meteorologists that say, well, the planet's going through a cooling phase now. This was supposed to happen. But we can't ignore the fact that these people are spraying tons, trillions of tons of metal particulates into our upper atmosphere. That's aluminum, barium, strontium, and polymer fibers, all of these things together creating these self-levitating particles in our upper atmosphere. They say the goal is to block the sun out in order to stop global warming, in order to cool the planet. So now scientists say that the Earth has lost 20% of its sunlight capacity, meaning it's 20% more dim, because of the fact that they've been spraying into the upper atmosphere and blocking the sun. On record, telling us geoengineering is an idea. It's something that we maybe can use down the line. But they've been doing this for more than 30 years now, and all of this technology comes from the research and the technology of Nikola Tesla in the early 1900s. Right. So they've actually been experimenting and playing with this for a long time now. But I would say that they are either very close or already there to actually being able to manipulate and change the weather. In the article, Owning the Weather by 2025, they said that they had a goal. Initially, they wanted to be able to forecast the weather in 7 days out, meaning they, spray wherever they spray, and then they know exactly when a storm or when a tornado or a hurricane is going to hit a specific place. Because the ultimate goal is to use the weather as a weapon, right? So instead of having to send soldiers and troops over to Russia, they just send a tornado and, destabilize the whole country, take all the planes and all the tanks out. So the initial goal was to be able to forecast 7 days out. Now, and then the shorter term goal was to forecast 3 days out. I watch now, always, monitoring. They'll spray, and then a day later, it'll either start raining, or it'll be extremely windy, or there will be an event, a weather event somewhere close. So it's chemtrails, it's HAARP, and it's geoengineering. Vaccination is also a part of the program. The fluoridated water is also a part of the program. And all of this also ties into, and I know I'm getting off subject here, but artificial intelligence and transhumanism. That's the ultimate goal, beyond just the weather, beyond just mentally and, controlling the mental and the emotional faculties of human beings. That's the ultimate goal.
The other thing I'll tell you about this weather manipulation is it's weather wars. But here's the other thing. Now, a lot of people don't talk about this. I stumbled upon this doing my research, and not a lot of people know. But the same way we have, like, the Wall Street Stock Exchange, Chicago has the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, you can make money gambling on the weather. It's called weather futures.
Oh, yeah.
Write this down. You have to,
Derivatives.
So they have weather futures.
Yeah.
That's right. And so you have to ask yourself, if I'm allowed to go ahead and try and make money by speculating on what the weather is going to be and how it impacts, farming, agriculture, and all of that, What makes you think they don't want to control the weather so they can control the amount of money they generate? Like, that's just logical. That's stepwise logic. But a lot of people, they play it off as conspiracy theory, but to me it's common sense.
Yeah, they talked about it. There's 2 documentaries online for anyone who's interested in learning more. What in the world are they spraying, and why in the world are they spraying? Those are great. Both of them on YouTube, the full documentaries, and they're great starting points. Or even, for people who may know about this and want more information, they talk about the derivatives. They talk about how they start the jet stream, controlling it in California. That drought in California is man-made, and not only is the drought man-made, but all of those metal particulates that are sitting in the soil in California is making all of that land more prone to fire, more prone to combustion, as far as the dry land, and it being fire season. So there's multi layers to this thing, and instead of people will do the conspiracy theory thing, and that's fine with me, but just be aware that 20, 30 years from now, we really don't know what this planet is actually going to look like. And I don't do fear mongering. I'm not afraid. I research and study this stuff because, I want to find out what we can do to be able to weather this storm. But also I'm fascinated by the potential of the human mind. So if these people can take their power and take their influence around the world and do so much negativity and so much evil and vindictive stuff, if we start having scientific minds, having mathematic minds, what can we do for the world if we're coming from a righteous perspective? We're too busy sitting back watching white people run the world. And you know what I mean? There has to be a change in the way that we see ourselves in our position on the planet. And because Black people in America in particular are setting trends upon trends upon trends, making, billion-dollar industries, we have to start thinking like landlords on the planet instead of always thinking like tenants.
Right. Okay. Hold on 1 second. I'm like, there was a question in the chat room. See, what, if anything, can we do with all the chemtrails, vaccinations, and HAARP? Do we just deal with it? Also, did we see where it snowed in the Sahara Desert? Okay, so I think we kind of touched on the chemtrails and the vaccinations and HAARP.
He or she was asking. Can I respond? He or she was asking about what can we do. And I'm glad that question was asked. The main thing is to build your immune system up. So, you're creating a protective barrier within yourself and within your family and your children to be able to fight this stuff off. So there is bentonite clay, doing detoxing through bentonite clay, which purges metal particulates from your system. There's chlorella, there's chlorophyll, there's alkaline water. There is making sure that you have a alkaline, green, plant-based diet. You may not, do it all the time, but it needs to be incorporated. Fasting, doing intermittent fasting, 1-day fasting, 3-day fasting is very beneficial for resetting resetting your organs and keeping your system clean. So those are some things. And obviously there's other things as well, but those are some things as far as the health is concerned.
Excellent. All right. Now I want to switch gears to this. Now, tell us, you were talking about, and I've seen different posts on your page about you run, or you're part of a group of sisters that, y'all are just doing different things that empower and edify Black women. Tell us, what's the name of that, and what's the goal, and what do y'all do?
Well, thank you so much for asking me about that. I'm so glad you did. The Sister Cipher Support Group, I started it about 3 years ago now. I'm going on 3 years ago now. We currently have roughly 100 members. Our members are separated in 3 different groups. And basically what we do is we financially support and contribute to all of our members every month. So every group will select one particular sister every month, and everybody will put some change in the pot, so to speak, for her. And it's just right now we're just building it up where we're supporting one another. Our short to midterm goal is to actually start doing some level of investment, and broadening, the impact that we can have in our communities. But right now it's just a group of women who said, I want in. How do I, get active with supporting other sisters? And that's what we do. You can get information about that. Email me at sister. So I have like 10 emails, so just pardon me. But sistercypher2016@gmail.com. Sister CYPHER 2016@gmail.com.
Now I want to switch gears to another thing. One thing that I notice you're passionate about is our children, and then also you being a mother. I have to bring this up because when I was growing up, I was born in '78. One of the things Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan was always talking about, they had that Just Say No campaign to drugs. That's when the height, I won't say the height, but the inception of the crack cocaine era. But now we're still saying no to drugs, but there's so many other things now that our kids are dealing with. It's the drugs, it's these new age synthetic drugs. Pedophilia is at an all-time high. The police are treating our kids like dogs. You can turn on Facebook or YouTube or WorldStar and see, police body slamming young girls, choking young boys out. And then at the same time with our kids, it's like we're kind of losing a fighting battle between our parental and domestic affairs to their attention to technology. Like they're addicted to the point where technology is almost as strong as crack cocaine to the younger generation. And then our kids are dealing with bullying and suicide. Now we're seeing little kids at 12 and 8 years old committing suicide. What's your take on this, with the situation with our kids, ZaZa?
Well, I'm working on this video now about it's called social media and social engineering, and it's really kind of pointing out a lot of the things that you talked about. It's one thing for our children to be victims of police brutality. It's another thing for it to go viral online and millions of people tune in and watch it over and over and over and over and over again. This is psychological programming. This is indirect psychological programming because we can't turn it off. That we're I was devastated when Trayvon Martin was murdered. I mean, I'm talking, he looked like my son. He was I was devastated, and that hearing that young brother cry out to no avail for help. It just really even now as I think about it, it just it takes me back to that. But consistently watching this over and over, we are inundating ourselves with trauma. So it's the initial act of police brutality, and then it's us sharing it. I get messages in my inbox and people are like, hurry up and watch this. You have to talk about this. Don't delete this. And it's like every other day, police brutality. Someone got shot. So we're sitting on computers and watching people be murdered. And we don't even understand how traumatic that is to the mind, to the spirit, to the emotions. So our children are now growing up in a world where they share world star videos like it's nothing. We watch girls get jumped in the community, and then they put it up online, and there's 20 people standing around watching a girl get jumped, and nobody did anything because everybody has phones. The bullying element, young 10 and 12 and 13-year-old girls committing suicide now. It's not enough for us to say, or for those, few select parents that are like, well, my children don't have social media. I took her, or she doesn't have a phone. Your child can still get bullied even if they don't have a phone. Your child can still be, become a victim of that very insane energy that comes with social media from young people. So we've got to start having classes, having meetings, talking to young people about not getting off of social media. Yes, they should spend less time, but about how to properly handle it. So this comes back to cultivating self-esteem. This comes back to teaching our daughters that their worth is not in, the size of their behind or the size of their breasts or how nice their legs look in pictures. All of that madness that they're focused on now. We have to go back to the basics because we're in an era of nonstop technology. So now it's time to go back to the basics, the fundamental elements of human beings, having a beautiful heart, being able to speak intelligently, being able to hold a decent conversation, being able to look people in the eye. You walking around, you know, you walking around on the up and down the street, and people are on their phones and literally walking, like, don't even look and see that somebody's about to walk into them. So This is an ideal time now for people who are thinking outside of the box and who recognize that there's a need for authenticity. There's a need for human connection. There's a need for, we've got to start creating organizations in our communities where young people can get outside. And, you know, this is why I want to do retreats for young people. I'm planning one now in Atlanta, doing the first one this summer. Take them out of their element. Take them into the wilderness. You know, learn about those team building games. You know, learn how to pick rocks in the lake. Learn, you know what I mean, riding a jet ski, you know, just playing in the dirt, whatever, but just going back to the basics of nature. You talked about the pedophilia. They say there's 4 million pedophiles in America at any given time. So now how does that conversation work if a young sister's online twerking and showing all of her body because she wants to get attention, not understanding that she has a next door neighbor in her community that's a pedophile that's watching her? What does that conversation look like? Right. Well, it's on her parents. If her parents were handling their business, we wouldn't even have to be talking about this. So if her parents aren't fit, does she become waste? You know, so I think it's on all of us, particularly the grown-ups, the 23 and up. It's really time for us to kind of step back and take an honest assessment of how technology is impacting our young people, how it's impacting how we deal with one another, the anti-black man, anti-black woman, all the madness online, the gender wars, all of that stuff. We got to kind of, you know, come back and go and look at this through different lenses so we can start, you know, changing this energy. This is very negative.
You know, I like sci-fi movies. I like dystopian films. I like horror movies too. And as you were talking about how, you know, the kids are watching this stuff and it's affecting them, they mimic this stuff. It brought me back to this. I don't know if you ever saw it, but there was this movie that came out maybe about roughly 9 years ago called The Ring. And the movie The Ring, it was like this Asian girl that was killed, and I think she was like dumped inside of a well, whatever. But if they had I guess her death was somehow filmed on a video cassette. And if you watch that video cassette, you pop it in the VCR, you watched it, the girl would end up coming out of the video set, out of the TV screen, and end up killing you. And to me, I thought that was like, it was almost a manifest. What we're seeing now is kind of like a metaphor or a manifestation of that. Like, you know, you're watching this.
And I'm pardon me for cutting you off, but before I forget this, you know, there was and this is something that I'm talking about in this video that I made. You know, in Pokemon, the cartoon was banned in certain parts of Russia and in certain parts of Asia because children were having seizures watching this cartoon. They were body experiences that, you know, was freaking their parents out and being brainwashed through a television program. And some of them ended up, you know, there were some bloody noses. There was some, you know, some physical ramifications, not just, you know, like, oh, I didn't feel good or it made me feel a certain type of way. But some of these children actually produced bloody noses, had physical responses to watching this show. Now, you fast forward recently, what was that, last year or the year before that, we had the Pokemon challenges, where all of these grown human beings are roaming around looking for a little animal or puppet or whatever it is that doesn't even exist, and there were deaths all around the world. People who were so honed in on trying to find this character that they walked off of train tracks and got hit by a train or got hit by a car, or you know what I mean? So it's like, is this art? Art imitating life, or life imitating art? Like, what's really happening here?
Right. With that said, man, do you have a few more minutes? I know we kind of went over, but my producer said that we can go over if we please. But I don't know if your schedule permits or not.
No, it's cool.
It's cool? Okay.
It's cool, yeah.
Okay, all right. Piggybacking on
because let me just tell y'all, this brother sent me a list today. He sent me a list of things we were going to talk about. I was like, brother, that's a 3-hour show. So I knew we were going to go past 45 minutes. So carry on.
All right. We're not going to do 3 hours, but we going to be there. But the spirit, because that's what we're looking at. When we look at World Star and all of that, we're seeing young kids committing suicide, bullying, all this type of stuff. We're dealing with spirits, but the thing is,
right.
I have these conversations with people, and a lot of people, spirits don't exist, it's just bad choices. And I'm like, look, it's a spirit behind the choice. What you're seeing, whether we're talking about Pokemon seizures and nosebleeds to somebody committing suicide or whatever, what you're seeing is physical, visceral reactions to invisible stimuli. People I don't believe in spirits. And I'm like, like I said in the list I sent you, well, okay, you don't believe in it because you can't see it, but yet you have a Wi-Fi subscription. Magnets work. You can hold two magnets of different polarity, and they'll attract each other or they'll repel each other. You can feel that force. That magnetism is real, but can you see it? No. You can feel gravity. You can jump up, but you won't stay in the air. You'll come back down. That's gravity, but can you see that? No, you can't see that. People sync their Bluetooth phones to their cars so they can talk on the speaker in the car or, hear music from their phone on their car speakers. That's invisible right there. Pheromones. People can, walk by or be with somebody, and it just turns them on, that scent. You cannot see it, but it's there. So when we talk about spirits, I don't understand why people have a hard time understanding that, but maybe you can share.
Well, and something, brother, that was perfect how you said that. And, thank God that we still have, people out here that actually think on a deeper level beyond just what it is. I mean, that's the thing I get so frustrated about. You start to step outside the box. It's like, the culture is, how they say children, only want chicken strips and French fries, right? Or macaroni and cheese. It's like our people, we have a culture of mediocrity. Think below. We don't think deeper into things. So what you said as far as that spirit, I mean, they call liquor spirits.
Exactly.
You turn, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You turn into somebody else when you drink a bottle of Jack Daniels, do you not? But my point is, you're not really turning into someone else, but a different level of your personality shows itself that you normally would not allow to be seen. So let's talk about dimensions, right? When people say, well, there's different dimensions, people, so I don't believe any of that. That's Satanism, or what do you think the internet is? We all get together. I'm looking at my computer right now, right? You're broadcasting live from right now from Blog Talk Radio. We can't walk to your radio station. We can't walk to, the Blog Talk headquarters and see where you're actually, transmitting and receiving this information. You can't you can't go and check your Yahoo email account. You can't go physically check a mailbox, your email account. It exists in a different dimension. It's not a physical dimension, right? So. Right. And then we could get deeper into it and talk about how the World Wide Web mirrors the human brain. That's where they actually conceived the idea of the foundation of it. But so here you are, and this is why I tell people, if you have those apps on your phone, you have Facebook, you have Instagram, turn the notifications off, because you're being summoned every time somebody comments on something. Every time you're being summoned to go back into that world. So now
I like how you said that.
You put something up on Facebook, right? Because you were in your feelings, or because you had a creative thought or something. You put it up. So now you and then you sign out. But you're all antsy because you don't know how people are going to respond. Is anybody going to like it? Oh, my God, it's been up 10 minutes and nobody's liked it yet. My picture's been up and it only got 50 likes. Like, there's this new culture of self-esteem or lacking self-esteem, or what self-esteem means now, based on how many followers you have, based on how many likes you get, based on how many comments. So there's a whole new world already been built right up under our noses, right? And we use it every day. We communicate every day, and don't even stop to think about the deeper ramifications as we walk into this artificial intelligence. You put in one word in Google, and Google already knows what you want to ask. You want to check a place to go get a veggie burger. You put in burger, and it knows exactly what type of burger you want before you even give it any information, because it's following you around, your movements on social media, your text messages. All of that is part of a larger system of algorithms that is creating an online avatar, if you will, of who you are. So there's another version of you floating around in a cloud in space, in cyberspace. But they want to call you a wacko for talking about spirits. We have to start thinking a little bit deeper.
Let me tell you something. What you said is some serious stuff right there. That is serious. From when you said you're being summoned, I was like, oh, she just dropped the gavel. It's like that's fact right there. Like, yeah, you're being summoned. I'm going about my day, and ding, oh, what's this? Let me go. Da da da.
Right. And don't let it be a negative comment. Don't let somebody say something about your dress or now your whole day's gone. Your whole day's messed up.
Right. Right.
And then going back to what you said about like suicide, little girls are being bullied online and taking their lives behind something somebody said on social media.
Right. And I like to piggyback on what you said. You're like, the self-esteem. And I say, is it self-esteem or a selfish theme that we're dealing with? Because everything is narcissistic,
Oh, yeah.
But
a weird combination of vanity and low self-esteem. Very dangerous. How can you be cocky and vain, and at the same time crying out for attention? You know what I mean? Like this weird combination of these two very different energies, where you're projecting to the world that you're so self-assured, you're so confident, you're so beautiful, but you have such low self-esteem because you're showing everybody everything that you have, and you don't even know who you are internally. So, yeah. Right.
And that's, and that's because, that goes back to the fact that we're not giving each other enough love, energy, and attention,
Absolutely.
So we do whatever we can to get it, how we can get it, because in fact, it shows that we are in need of each other. We don't know how we need each other. You know what I'm saying? So we're definitely in need of each other.
And and just to that whole us needing each other, and this is when I talk about like going back to the basics. The human touch. When you touch another human being, when you come into a certain space proximity with another human being, your heart and your electromagnetic field of your body is having a conversation with that person. Doesn't have anything to do with what you say. Doesn't have anything to do with whether you touch. When you touch, your body starts to let off different chemicals based on how you feel. Yes. If it's somebody you have a crush on, then you get that tingly feeling. If it's somebody that you don't like, then the cortisol will kick in and your rage will start to kick in. So understanding, talking about going back to the basics, and I mean, as a people, man, we just got to get back to being compassionate, being empathetic, and loving one another again, even in our madness, talking to one another. Holding hands and hugging your children and hugging your grandparents and having that physical connection, because I think we're more separated now just from the technology perspective. I know than ever. And I'm really curious to see, you look at China and Japan, and these are places that are very, their populations are very controlled by technology. And some of the young people in Japan and China, they don't even live in the real world. like they literally spend the majority of their day in technology through different simulations and more advanced video games and things that we have now. You see the fake dolls coming down, the fake women, the fake men. You know what I mean? Like, just what is happening? What is happening on the planet?
Avatar.
Please tell me. I feel like I'm in a science fiction movie.
Avatar world, man. It's man, it's a good book. Have you? And then also, if you read it recently, the book Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Have you read that before?
I haven't. No.
Oh man, when you get a chance, please go to Barnes & Noble and pick up Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. That right there, and what they say in the West Coast, this right here. Yo, listen. I'm not going to go any further because you already know how you and I have been talking. That's enough for you to know you need to get that book. But
okay.
So check that out. But you were talking about like the avatars and personalities, and one thing, and also creating this new dimension of ourselves through these different online profiles that the government, these corporations are building based off this information and intelligence that they're gathering off of us. One thing, have you checked out this thing called the 2045 Global Futures Congress?
Mm-mm.
Oh, ZaZa, let me tell you something. Sister, when you get a chance, and I'll probably see the link, but this is
I just wrote it down. I wrote it down. 2045 Global Futures Conference.
Global Futures, Congress.
Okay.
They're the one there. They're making the archetypes for the avatars, turning humans into avatars, where they can, the movie Transcendence. With Johnny Depp,
I was just thinking that. There's another one too. What was that other movie that came out? There's like three parts of it where they have people separated in different personality personality types. Oh man, it's a really popular movie trilogy. But and it goes right along with that, and that's part of what the artificial intelligence and what's happening right now through social media. They say on Facebook and Instagram, they look at your algorithms and they look at your habits online, and then they create a certain experience for you online on Facebook. So, I have 40,000 followers on Facebook. I don't know how many people I follow, but there's a lot of people who follow my page that can't see what I post because they're moving them more in a direction that they think is, if it's somebody who watches porn all the time, or if it's somebody that, only watch World Star Hip Hop, they won't have access to my page because they're trying to keep them shifted in a different type of energy, focusing the energy on the lower self, keeping you from, elevating your consciousness and reading more and, looking at history or archaeological or whatever type of websites. It's social programming. They're creating new layers and levels of consciousness and putting people in boxes and in categories.
I once again, I implore you, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley.
I will.
Because they broke down society. Okay, so the show producer, she just inboxed me. She said the movie, are you talking about Divergent? The movie?
Divergent, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's real. And Brave New World, they broke it down to where, they stratified society into different people. Like, you had a group called Alpha citizens, Beta citizens, Gamma citizens. So, they stratified
the brain waves. The brain. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh man, and they had a drug that they always used to keep the citizens feeling well called Soma. And anyway.
Medical marijuana, 2018.
Whoa, okay, all right.
Ouch. Yeah,
right.
Y'all don't write me telling me about how good and beautiful and pure marijuana is. But they're making it in laboratories now, so just be mindful.
That's right. And if they're making it in laboratories, that ain't for you. That ain't your daddy's weed.
Right.
Well, depending on who we're talking about, but it could be a daddy's weed. But Yeah. Well, listen, ZaZa, I'm not going to take up any more of your time because I know we went a little over than, we probably needed to. We probably have other things to do. You're putting together videos and a bunch of other things, working on your book. Once again, let people know how they can get in contact with you and the books that you got out and the retreats that are coming up and,
Thank you. And again, I want to thank you, for having me and definitely sending love and positive energy to all of your listeners. The one thing that I always hone in on and that I'm going to continue honing in on is that we have to start being accountable for ourselves. We have to start reestablishing the idea of governing self. We're so dependent on the government and this broader world, racism, white supremacy, corporations, whatever you want to call it, because we don't really hone in on ourselves. So doing the internal work, talking about diet, talking about fasting, talking about exercising, talking about reading, studying, researching, keeping your mind sharp. So I'm not just on here talking about, chemtrails and all of this stuff that may be over your head because that you need to know it because you do, but also you are expanding your mind when you continuously feed it knowledge, feeding it information. So the only way we're going to kind of come up with an actual counter to chemtrails and geoengineering is to study chemtrails and geoengineering. That's how we come up with a solution for genetically modified food. I mean, most of us go into grocery stores and don't realize that 80 to 90% of the food that we purchase has been genetically modified in some type of way. Well, what does that mean?
That's right.
That means if you buy a lemon and it doesn't have any seeds in it, it's not going to reproduce itself. They took the genetic makeup of a lemon and put it in a petri dish and added a foreign substance, depending on what, if they wanted to grow in Alaska or something, and created a new archetype. That's not the word I want to use, but for lack of a better word, they created a new type of lemon in a petri dish and put it all together and started growing lemons that are modified now. So what does that mean for the ability for our children and our grandchildren to reproduce themselves if they're eating fruit that doesn't have seeds? Watermelons without seeds are so fun, right? But they don't have seeds. So to my point, keeping your mind sharp, keeping your brain sharp, emotional, physical, spiritual, and mental well-being. Every single day, each one of us should be doing something, moving us in that direction. My website is ZaZaAli.com. All of my, I have a lot of videos on my site. My blog is there. I have the women's retreat in Savannah, Georgia this May. It's sold out. We're getting ready to announce Sedona in November of this year. That'll be my birthday, so I'm really excited about that. And then we're working on a youth retreat for Atlanta, in Atlanta for young people, young teenagers, at-risk youth, quote unquote. I have the Sister Cipher support group. We're working on starting back supporting African Center schools, so I'm working on that behind the scenes. My third book is coming out, and I'll probably be doing some book releases this summer when I have some time to actually stop and then do some traveling. So that and more, but I'm just grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have this platform, and I appreciate you for having me. And let me just say, I appreciate you for being so thorough and knowledgeable. Sometimes I do interviews and it's just me, but I've been writing notes about things that you said that I want to look into. So I've been learning from you, which is always a plus for me. So thank you so much for that. You and your people that are working with you.
No doubt, sister. And I'm getting an inbox from my boy, one of my right hand man, Roger Suggs, vigilante out of Kansas City, told me to tell you what's up.
Okay.
I think you met him at the All Black Conference, vigilante.
Okay.
Roger Suggs.
Right on.
Yeah, he told me to tell you
Peace,
what's up.
brother.
That's right. And also, real quick, before I let you go, you were talking about the GMO foods. So for people that don't understand the severity of what GMO food means, like I said, there's always a dichotomy. There's a double-edged sword to any creation. You're not in the lab. You don't know what these bioengineers are doing in the lab, okay? So what this means is you have somebody that has a nefarious plan such as when you talk about people that did the Tuskegee experiment, right? So you have people that are wicked, that are in high places, they're in positions where they can control life and death. What does this mean when we talk about GMO foods? If they really want to eradicate, purge the public, I can genetically modify a lemon so that it tastes like a lemon. It looks like a lemon, but guess what? I strip out the protein that codes to make vitamin C. So you're not getting any vitamin C. You're getting what tastes like a lemon, but it don't got the vitamin C that your body needs. I can GMO this carrot so that it looks like the color orange and it's sweet like a carrot, but it lacks vitamin A. So now you're going through macular degeneration and your eye's not getting the vitamin A. Your skin's not getting the vitamin A it needs. These are the things you need to start thinking about, people. Is we're not just complaining about GMO foods to be complaining. It's the fact that you don't know the background behind the science and the possibilities behind the science when a wicked mind is in control of the science. So that's
let me just say this, and obviously, we could talk about conventional versus organic, and things that people can eat, and I talk about that in the book. How to spot a genetically modified versus an organic or conventional. But it's not just the genetically modified; it's also the conventional food, the ones that that have the stickers on them that start with four-letter number. That's what most of us, or four-digit number. What most of us usually buy, because organic is expensive, right? But the produce is being heavily sprayed with pesticides. So now it's been proven, the brother Tyrone Hayes at the UC Berkeley did an extensive study on atrazine and found that, the atrazine, this pesticide was turning, he did a study on 3,000 toads and found that it was turning the male toads into females, that they were started developing ovaries, that they started to develop female anatomy, and that they started their voice box changed, the projection of their voice, and that they started to actually develop physical attraction to other male toads. Now, this is science. You can go and look at this brother's work and study it. But the other thing is, you talked about the seeds and the physical element of what genetically modified food can potentially mean and what it is doing. We also have to understand this. The rulers of this world are at war with nature. They're at war with nature, and everything that they're doing right now, we could look at it from a technology perspective and trying to bring in artificial intelligence, this new, master ruler type of technology that's supposed to take over everything, that's already done it in certain ways. We can look at the chemtrails and the geoengineering and the HARP, and now, my studies and research, they're trying to create a third strand of DNA, that will take me somewhere else. I'm not going to get into that, but if we look at now, they're creating fake trees. They have genetically modified salmon. You know what I mean? The chickens are 50 pounds now. One chicken, is extreme. All these growth hormones and whatnot, and we wonder why our daughters are having breasts when they're 8 years old. We wonder why, little girls have hair under their arm when they're 6. Stop eating Popeyes. You know what I mean? So it's and I don't want to leave anyone feeling like, oh my God, we need to be afraid. No, all we have to do, they have to control the world's resources. They have to keep people oppressed. They have to abuse every type of institution around the world in order to maintain their control and play these psychological games and play economic games and play all of this energy that they put into keeping people from being conscious. All we have to do is eat right, think right, live right, be right, and be in tune with nature and strive for some higher level of consciousness and spirituality. Religion, spirituality, however, whatever your thing is that draws you in. But it's time for us to really get back into honing in on ourselves, because that's how we win the war. That's the answer. Right. But that's the thing we run away from. We want to throw money at a school. We want to say that we just need banks and institutions, which we need all of that. But if we were mentally and spiritually and emotionally astute in our right mind, we'd have all of that. We have the money.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for having me, brother. I really appreciate you.
No doubt, no doubt. And I'll contact you, too, about the other thing I was telling you about the film later on this week. But, ladies and gentlemen, you tuned into Source Nation, Source Radio Network. We had Miss ZaZa Ali tackling all the topics of the day. We were blessed and thankful to have her here. She always has a home here with us whenever she wants to come. Make sure when you finish publishing your book that you hit me up so we can get you back on the air and talk about that. So we're going to sign out, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Every Wednesday, 8 p.m. on Source Radio Network, Blog Talk Radio, Samori Swygert, a.k.a. Doc Swag, on the Pendulum. And I'll see you next Wednesday at 8. Peace.
Yo.